Hi, I'm Kristin Warry of Swindon Borough Council, and I'm going to talk to you about why Inspire doesn't have to be painful, because I know there's a perception out there that it's going to take a massive amount of effort and it's going to cost a lot of money, and I don't think it is. So hopefully by the end of this you'll agree with me. Now, the usual situation is that we feel completely overwhelmed by the amount of data a lot of us are trying to deal with on a day-to-day basis, which is why I love this cartoon picture so much. The users are just out there creating data whenever they like to, and they don't tell you when they've changed something. It could be the name of a school through to the boundaries. And that means the first you get to hear about it is when someone's phoned in and says, why is the website wrong? Then we've got the internal issues, people saying, oh no, you can't have the data, it's not ready yet, rather than releasing versions. People who make duplicates and then just edit the data on their C drive because that's faster to work from home that way. People who refuse to share and hide behind data protection acts, or people who actually cannot share because their software won't allow them to export data. And all of this leads into a hideous mess of data where quite a lot of authorities don't just have hundreds of data sets, they have thousands or they have tens of thousands of data sets, and this is actually scarily quite common. Now, Inspire is based on some good common sense, really. If you read through it, this is something taken directly from the website, and we'll just go through it. It says data should be collected only once and kept where it can be maintained most effectively. And this is exactly right. Just because you can put the school on the map does not necessarily mean you are the person who should be keeping the headmaster's name up to date, for example. It should also be possible to combine spatial information and collect it at one level, for example at household level, and disseminate that at a ward level to be shared across systems. This geographic information then can be used for good governance. It needs to be ready, it needs to be transparently available, which is why it's often not used by senior management at the moment. It just seems too difficult to get a simple picture. When we deal with pictures all the time, why can't we just give these simple pictures to our senior management? It's just crazy. And a lot of problems are because it's not easy to find what GI is available, and you don't know how you can use it, how you get hold of it. So we're facing quite an uphill struggle a lot of the time, it seems. But what if you suddenly had a great big stick? Now, those people who know me know that I do have a very big, very colourful walking stick, but a lot of you don't. However, Inspire can be seen as a very nice big virtual stick. Now, when we failed or struggled in the past with our gazetteers, a lot of times that was because legally they were just best practice, or certainly the property gazetteer was. But Inspire is different. Inspire is in the UK law, and it comes from an EU directive. We have to do this. We have no choice. And just recently, I now hear that UK governments have decided that if an authority is the one that fails and leads to EU level fines, then that local authority will be the one to pay. And that could be extremely expensive. So what you need to do is actually point out that you're the person who's telling them how to comply with this. You don't have to do this all by yourself. Don't get scared that it's all on you. I think we try to take too much onto ourselves at times. Use the fact that the national situation, that the law has changed to your advantage, and get help. Get buy-in from your sponsors, from your senior management. And hopefully these next few slides will give you some ideas of how to go about that. And we may struggle with this. A lot of people are fed up of not being recognised. It's the most common complaint I hear from GI managers, but Have you ever thought that this is the opportunity you've been waiting for? Get your facts about Inspire. Get them either from this presentation or from the seminars that the LGA are running, from the Inspire website, from the forums on the Knowledge Hub. There's a lot of different places where you can get your facts about Inspire. But you need to get a few more facts as well, which I'll go over in a minute. Once you've got these facts, you can get your senior managers, your heads of planning, heads of transport, and sit them in a room. Now, if that seems a bit scary to do by yourself, then by all means, take your line manager, and if needs be, their line manager in as well. Because once you explain to them the level of fines, they're not going to want it all just on their heads. And the thing to do when you get the senior management there is to give them simple facts. They can't argue with that. What they might do is they might decide that perhaps they don't want to do this at the moment, but at least you'll know they've made an informed decision. But if you get your facts straight, actually they want to do this. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. Because the thing is, by doing Inspire, by sorting out our data, we get a lot of benefits right the way through, from the immediate to the elusive. There's a fantastic diagram from a book by Wiley Press, which I hope they won't mind that I've used. But we quite often concentrate just on the first two, the management and the reduction of the complexity benefits. And we forget, even at that level, what some of those benefits can be. Now, this has got some great ones on here, like the reduced storage costs. How many of you have actually ever gone to your server team to find out how much it costs per gig to store, to back up? And how much would they like for you to cut down your storage costs? Now, I one day just did a quick trawl and managed to delete 0.5 terabyte of data. Completely horrified our IT support, because they couldn't believe that anyone could actually find that much junk in one day to delete. But it was actually 2 weeks worth of council data, and gave us a fantastic breathing space when our servers were actually getting fairly full. So little things like that can add up to some fantastic corporate savings, and that's what you need to do. You need to start thinking corporately about the reduced duplication, better asset management, right through to better decision making and better quality of life for the public and the workforce when they can find their information. And some of these things are quite easy to sell, particularly if you go in with the idea of winning them over, having already assessed some of these things as far as it goes in your organisation. It's very easy to sit down and work out how many of your officers are doing GI. Have a look at the tables that they have created and see how many are the same. Trees are usually a good one. You'll find you've got your tree preservation trees, your maintained trees, your trees on the highway, maybe trees at schools. And in some of these, the tree might not even be the same species in different ones. So you can all add this up to your duplication effort and try and put some time and money to this, and back that up with the risks and the costs of incorrect data, because going back after something has been found out to be wrong may not even be possible. Imagine the risk if there was a flood and you didn't know where all your vulnerable people and where all your transport networks were going through that flood. That information at that time is invaluable, and your emergency planners can help you out with assessing costs for that. Then this all leads together towards what the actual benefits are of one version of the truth. But, like I said, don't offer to do this all yourself, because it's all too easy to get over-eager if they're starting to listen and say, yes, I can do this. Say, yes, I can help advise your staff. Yes, I can train your staff. That's a far better approach, because suddenly you are selling yourself as the expert you are. And while you're at it, throw in a few more sentences of what you can do once you have this corrected combined data. How much time do their officers waste through simply data duplication efforts just to get something into their own system? And that time could then be spent far better on giving them trend data, up-to-date pictures. There's so much you can offer them within their own resources without spending extra money, which would be really, really useful to them. This all helps, but you have to be ready to counteract their fears. And one of the biggest fears is always, what's it going to cost? Is it going to hurt? Particularly when it comes to software. That's the advantage of having international standards now. Certainly the major software suppliers are now starting to make their systems compatible with Inspire. They know it's coming. If you've got a system in-house that isn't compatible, you now have a standard to point them to, and you can tell them this is a legal change. This means your suppliers have time to conform, because legal changes should be supported in your general maintenance agreement. If they're trying to kick up a fuss and don't want to do it, there's always power in numbers, and there are a lot of us, and no supplier is going to want to turn around to the public sector and say, no, I can't be bothered to offer an export format, when we've all banded together and said change or else. Because there's always another software supplier out there, as we well know. And if you have a system that's basically was a one-off, it's outdated and it's very hard for you to maintain, it is also a very good opportunity to come in and say, have you thought perhaps it might be time to replace your system with something a little more modern and flexible maybe? Just try not to upset the senior management at once. Do that with one when they're on their own. After you've won, hopefully, over your senior manager, then the next thing to do is to deal with their power users, because the support is great, but it's the power users that are going to have to do. And as we've already said, it's very easy for them to hide their data and what they're doing. However, this can be sold as a benefit to them as well. Get them in all one room, all right, maybe 2 meetings, 2 rooms if you've got a load of them, and tell them that you've got to share. There's no two ways about it. This data has to be published. But if you publish it and everyone does, suddenly all this other data will be available to be opened in their own system. They won't have to hop from database to database just to access core data. So it's actually not just a fair trade, it's actually very beneficial for them to do this. And while you're at it, just to show them the power of this sharing, show them data.gov.uk. It's now a fantastic website, and it really should keep them happy for quite a few months. Together, what we end up with then is a data architecture. Now, the final person you really need to win over is your Chief Information Officer or the person in charge of audit, because there are audit targets on data quality and management of data quality. These may actually be the same person, it varies at every organisation. But the best thing to do is to have done your research, sit them down, tell them how many thousands or tens of thousands or even more copies of data sets there are in your organisation or you suspect there are on C drives, and watch them go pale. Because usually they've never stopped to think that actually they've asked for data within a ward, but if the ward is wrong, then everything based on that is wrong. They've never gone down to that level, most of them. Once they do, they get very, very scared. So then, once they've calmed down and they've had a cup of tea, it's time to bring them in the Inspire structures and themes. And you show them how this can support your overall organisational architecture. We're very, very used to people talking about our service architecture, how we structure our public services, or how we structure our technology architecture, our networks, our cables, our hubs, but we very rarely talk about information or data architecture. And without that, it's like a three-legged stool with only two legs. It does fall over. But what we're offering here is a system of agile data, and agile data can support any service or technology change whilst maintaining its own structure and architecture. So the barriers should be very, very few, so hopefully it'd be very easy to win them over. And there's more. Fortunately, the LGA are offering us a very good free metadata tool, and there's other things that they're working on besides the Knowledge Hub and all the information they're putting out. So you can use these to help start keeping track of your data and getting it together ready for Inspire. And obviously, as we've said, you'll then be able to share far easier with other organisations, because once you've got your head around the metadata tools, you'll then be able to find what's out there. And not only will you be able to find what's out there, you'll also be able to trust it, because no one's going to submit something as a legal definitive data set without making very clear where the data's come from and how safe it is, because some of these datas are actually still under review or a data set that's being prepared, but the metadata will make that very clear and should also say when it's up for renewal, so you know exactly what you can use and how you can use it. These things all pulled together means that everyone can steadily sort out their own data during their day jobs over the next couple of years. They'll be saving the time on not having to duplicate and save all over the place, and in return there will be an extra 10 minutes here and there, but only a once off, as they use that data set and then declare it as the definitive one, and then tell you which copies they need to either archive as it's a historic version that needs to be kept, or just delete all the useless copies. So we'll then slowly work our way through and have our Inspire data. And that's why I think Inspire won't be painful. I think it will actually be very beneficial for a lot of organisations. And I hope you agree, and I hope this has helped you find your own path forwards, and good luck.